Lots of huge breaking news happening. We are seeing the collapse accelerate. And this is leading towards one thing. We know what it's heading towards: a social credit system, a tracking and tracing system. All right. We know what this is heading towards. And countries already have things like this in place. All right. I made a whole report how China is implementing the biggest social credit and carbon credit tracking system on planet Earth. All right. And the biggest one right now is in EU, actually. But China is implementing one that's even bigger. And we are moving closer towards this every day. All right. So lots of big news. All right. Let's hit all these topics. Stick with me here because these are all connected and these are all leading towards the big one. All right. So even more mass layoffs are happening across the US and across the world. All right. A major natural gas outage in Texas is going on. OPEC gives a major warning to Western countries about oil production, warns lots of big things are coming, okay? And the beast banking system is being implemented right now throughout the world, in countries throughout the world, all right? Not in China. This is a westernized country that this is happening in right now, all right? So we will get to all that, but let's start with these mass layoffs happening right now, okay? This is huge because this is a company that they know what's happening behind the scenes. They can see what all the other companies are doing. They see this company's slowing down, this company's accelerating. They kind of have this hidden access that's not really televised or talked about or anything, but they really do have a lot of, they're almost like a bank. They can see what all the different companies are doing, what's going in, what's going out, and if they're slowing down or not. So here it is: FedEx to furlough drivers just as Christmas season begins. All right. So they're going to furlough a ton of drivers. The number is not exact right now, but it's coming, guys. And I made a report I made this report a couple months ago how Walmart fired 1,500 employees at this massive Atlanta distribution center, and they're going to fire them all right before Christmas. Well, guess what? Another theme happening right here, right before Christmas. So Merry Christmas from Walmart and FedEx. And I know sometimes it's not their fault. We're in a recession, we're in a depression, but it's also one of these things that it's hitting people hard. This is going to start compounding and snowballing, and we're going to see company after company fire people, and we're going to see the employment rate just tick up and tick up, right? So it says FedEx Freight, the company's less than truckload arm unit, says an unspecified number of its employees will be furloughed in early December to match lower than expected demand. The furloughs will last around 3 months. During this time, workers will receive health benefits and may file for unemployment benefits with the state. So there you go. Unemployment's going to tick up little by little. And we knew this was going to happen because the economy has had massive inflation. All right, we are entering the stagflationary scenario where there's still inflation. Prices of everything are still going up, but there's no growth in the economy. The growth is slowing. The growth is always negative. We're not even getting the at least benefit of inflation. There's at least one benefit to it, that it normally bumps up growth as things get more expensive, okay? It at least, raises the GDP along with it. But that's not been happening. It's been the opposite. And we are seeing more shortages on things like energy and fuel as well. So it says only drivers will be currently furloughed. The unit employs around 45,000 people, but it remains unclear how many of them will be furloughed. It comes as the segment has seen volumes taper off in recent weeks amid high inflation and fears of a recession on the horizon. In its most recent quarter, the unit reported 21% growth in revenue, but a 67% rise in operating expenses compared to the previous year. So this is crazy, right? In the same quarter last year, They have 21% more revenue from inflation, but their operating expenses are 67% more. Essentially, it's probably canceling out all this extra revenue and profits that they're making. 67% rise in operating expenses compared to last year in the same quarter. All right, this is huge. This is the stagflation I was talking about. Is maybe there's a little bit of growth, but all the inflation is just overshadowing it, all right, and bringing everything down. So it says the average daily shipments over that same time fell by 5%. So 5% less shipments, 21% more revenue, but 67% higher operating expenses. This is a disaster. No business could operate in this environment? It doesn't make sense. Shipments are falling, but revenue is going up, but then your expenses are tripling the percentage of your growth, right? Unsustainable environment. This is why they're furloughing workers, because they probably don't even know what to do. They probably don't even know where to make cuts except to just cut people. That's always the first thing that comes. It's the easiest thing to do. And here we go again. Amazon plans to lay off 10,000 employees too, right? So Amazon, FedEx, Facebook laid off 11,000. All these tech companies, even more companies coming up in just a second. Mass layoffs are coming, guys. The downturn is here. This is 2008 all over again, but it's probably going to be worse because we are way more over leveraged than in 2008, right? The past few years, everyone got way over leveraged and put in bad positions, and now we are going to see it. We're going to see it all come back, all right? We're going to have to pay the consequences for this stuff, all right? So Amazon reportedly plans to lay off 10,000 corporate and technology employees as soon as this week. It says the move comes as Amazon CEO began a cost-cutting review of the company, which included scaling down businesses that haven't been profitable, such as its devices unit. People familiar with the matter told the Wall Street Journal. It says Amazon has already warned employees recently in underperforming units to prepare to look for another job as the company makes cutbacks amid the uncertain economic environment. Earlier this month, Amazon also implemented a hiring freeze. All right, so hiring freeze and laying off over 10,000 employees, and they were warning them, we're coming for your job. All right, if you're underperforming, you are going to get fired. All right, all the fat's being cut right now. All the fat's being cut. Okay, and it says, just a reminder, I made a video on this too, that last month, Jeff Bezos, former CEO, he said that, quote, batten down the hatches. He said you need to, quote, batten down the hatches for a recession coming, because he retweeted the Goldman Sachs CEO saying a recession is almost certain very soon in the U.S., which technical definition, I believe we are already in it. It's only 2 quarters of negative growth, I believe, is the technical definition. But they keep saying it's going to come, a recession's going to come. He retweeted this saying, batten down the hatches, all right? So have you done that? Have you been batten down the hatches, all right? Have you been doing that? Have you been preparing? Did you take this warning seriously if you saw it last month? Because it's getting a lot worse, guys, and it's going to accelerate. The curtains being pulled back, the smoke and mirrors of the last few months of we see all these insane numbers, but then we're just told, it's fine, don't worry, it's all good, it's all gravy, don't worry. But the smoke and mirrors, it's over, it's evaporating now, and we are hitting the pavement now, right? Things are actually happening. And Amazon just canceled dozens of their warehouses as well, right? So it says Amazon cancels and delays dozens of warehouses as it looks to right size capacity. So they have too much. They're over leveraged. They have too many facilities, too many warehouses. They need to figure out what they need to have to meet the demand of the market, because the market's slowing down, right? People aren't able to have as much discretionary spending on these random things on Amazon. Okay. And honestly, I'm like, I'll get into this warehouse thing in just a second, but I recently bought something off Amazon, right? It was only like $20, but it clearly had all these pictures and the brand and everything. And then when I got it, it was like a similar product. It was like the same thing kind of, but it was a completely different brand and it was not what I wanted. Like, just don't even understand. It was like the same product pretty much, but it's like a different brand and it's kind of like a knockoff and just weird and clunky. It was not what I ordered. And it's just, I've gotten this, like, I don't even like buying stuff off Amazon because it feels like half the things are just Chinese knockoffs, honestly. Seriously. I've bought things that are like even a little more expensive, like, and I've been worried that these are fake when they arrive. I'm like, is this fake? Like, is this even a real product? All right. So that's my experience. I'm not slandering anyone. This is just what happened to me. I got different products. All right. I ordered something and then I get a like knockoff of this product, and I was like, okay, like, this is not what I ordered at all. This is a totally different product. Doesn't even look the same. It's a similar product, but it doesn't even look the same at all. Weird. And it's in a box that doesn't even have like a brand or logo. It's just like, it just feels sketchy. It just feels sketchy. It just feels like it's a risk to buy things on it, honestly, at this point. That's how I always feel. I don't like ordering things on it. So Amazon, for multiple reasons, all right? So Amazon says they are canceling 66 active or planned U.S. facilities. 66. That's a lot. That's a ton of, just in the U.S., all right? And it says the company's cancellations, closures, delays, or pauses impact 24.6 million square feet of ground level space for fulfillment centers, delivery stations, and other types of buildings across 28 states. So 28 states, 66 warehouses being canceled from Amazon, all right? They're flashing the warning signs. They're telling us that recession is here, depression is here. I was saying this when Walmart did this. I said, Walmart's always one of the first movers and shakers. They're always one of the first people to see what's coming and to draw back because their supply chain, their network is so expansive. They can see what's happening. They can see what's happening in like different parts of the world. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we need to like contract or do this or that. And they can tell, right? That's why they've been having mass layoffs too. So this is going to spread. This is going to spread. And it's also spreading to areas that are a national security risk as well, like our chip manufacturing, right? The Biden came out and warned last week that the chip shortage is a national security emergency, all right? This is huge that he's saying this, and this is very true that this is happening. And there was a bill passed to give these chip companies billions of dollars and to build chip manufacturing facilities in the United States to up our production, even though they said that'll take 3 to 5 years to even get the first one online. But they were giving billions of dollars to all of these Intel companies, all of these semiconductor companies to up production right now to fill the shortage. But we are even seeing layoffs in the chip maker industry, all right? So it says the U.S. said it would give billions to chip makers like Intel. Now comes the layoffs, right? So it says when a group of semiconductor companies like Intel Corp lobbied Congress to pass a $52 billion chip stimulus earlier this year, one of the biggest federal investments in a private industry in history, they argued in part that the subsidies and tax breaks would protect American jobs. So they were saying, hey, we're going to up production. We're going to produce all these jobs for Americans. Give us $52 billion. This is insane. Massive amount. I feel like our money is just monopoly money. There's no weight to it anymore. There's no like $52 billion. It's just like, yeah, they gave him $52 billion. Like, who cares? They give away billions all day. It's like, this is insane. This is just, where does this money go? Who's auditing this money when it goes to these companies? Like, where'd it go? Where'd it actually go? Because now they are firing tons of people, right? So it says now, just months before the funding applications open, the nation's largest semiconductor company is reportedly planning a major reduction in its workforce and could still receive billions in federal subsidies. Thousands of Intel employees are expected to be laid off later this month to cut costs amid a steep decline in demand for PC processors, according to Bloomberg. Some divisions, including sales and marketing, could lose 20% of their staff. So, national security risk, major issue. These chips being produced, the president's even saying that this CHIP Act is passed to give them all this money, and they're still just laying off people, right? You would think they would want to keep all of these people on board for when they get this money to ramp up production, but who knows? Where does all this money ever go? We really don't know. There's all these programs, all these funds, all these slush funds, and we really just don't even know where a lot of our own tax dollars end up, right? It's sad. So let's get into this liquid natural gas outage in Texas, right? So this has actually been going on for a few months, and they thought they were going to restore the flow, but they're saying they're going to extend the outage even longer. Surprise, surprise, it's going to take even longer, right? And this outage was caused by a massive explosion and massive fire, and it was speculated that it was even a cyber attack on this. I covered this when this happened, but now it was supposed to be fixed by this time, and they're saying, sorry, it's going to take even longer, and they're not really telling us when it's going to be open again to bring these prices down. So it says, major U.S. LNG exporter may extend Texas plant outage through December. It says Freeport LNG tells customers it will likely scrap more cargoes. Texas export facility has been offline since a fire and explosion. A major U.S. liquefied natural gas exporter will likely extend an outage that began in June, curbing much-needed supplies to customers in Europe and Asia right before winter. So Europe was depending on this pipeline to get back online so they could get these exports. But I don't know. It's not going to happen. It's too late. Sorry, not happening again. Freeport LNG told buyers it will likely cancel shipments scheduled for November and December as work continues on repairs and regulatory approvals before a restart. All right, so just another thing that's adding up. And when this happened, there was a lot of speculation that this was a cyber attack, right? And this is a piece out of the Washington Examiner. And this is what they were saying, right? This is complete speculation, but apparently they had some evidence to speculate this hard on this. This is what they said, all right? I'm not saying this. This is what they said. It says, did a Russian hacker blow up a Texas liquid natural gas pipeline on June 8th? So this has been out since June 8th. It's been out for months, and it's going to keep going, guys. Keep going. It says, according to two sources around the time of Russia's late February invasion, a cyber unit of Russia's military intelligence services again conducted targeting reconnaissance operations against a major U.S. liquefied natural gas exporter, Freeport LNG. So they're speculating that this could have been a cyber attack because apparently there was military reconnaissance targeting operations on this pipeline in late February, when all this stuff popped off. And it says U.S. LNG exports have long been a priority concern for Russia, viewed by the president as a means for the United States to undercut Russia's dominance of the European gas market. On June 8th, Freeport LNG suffered an explosion at its liquefaction plant and export terminal on Texas's Quintana Island. The damage suffered means the facility is not expected to resume major operations until late 2022. So they were going to resume operations, but now they're saying they're not, right? And it said the June 8th disruption had an immediate impact on spiking, already soaring gas prices. So this is just like, this could happen at any time, right? This is one of these things, and it's so up in there, these cyber attacks and stuff. They're so just sketchy. They're so sketchy, right? Definitely could be Russia doing it. Russia has cyber hacking abilities, okay? But they're also just so sketchy, and it's hard to tell who did it, right? And they could spoof things, like things could be spoofed. A different country could be doing it. Certain bad actors could be doing it. We don't really know. It's one of these things that are so sketchy. It's hard to tell where these attacks could be coming from, right? They definitely could be Russian, but they also could be something else, like spoofed or something, or they could be, who knows? Who really knows, all right? They could be bad inside actors as well. Hopefully not, but it's just one of those things you never really know with cyber attacks. They are very sketchy. It's just like, you just go by whatever's told to you in the media. You know what I mean? Whatever the source says that this is who did it, you know? And we can't really see the raw data. And most people, like I couldn't even interpret this raw data and see where all this stuff's coming from. You know what I mean? It's one of these things that it's very sketchy, very gray area. And that's not a good thing, right? Because it opens us up for potential for this stuff to happen more, all right? And it could be blamed on any country, and then that could be a means to accelerate a war against that country. Be like, this country cyber attacked our infrastructure, shut down this infrastructure, caused an explosion, did this or that. That could be a means, that could be considered an attack, a direct attack on soil, on their main soil, right? On American soil, any country. And they could say, this attack coming from this region or whatever, we pinpointed it. Maybe it's spoofed, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. But that could be used as a means to start a massive war. That could be seen as an attack on American infrastructure, right? This is a very dangerous game that we are playing. So this also comes as OPEC is giving a massive warning to the West and the United States, right? So it says the oil market faces, quote, considerable uncertainties, OPEC warns. Considerable uncertainties. The oil producers cited a raft of, quote, considerable uncertainties clouding the picture for global oil supplies from the course of Russia's war in Ukraine to a G7-led plan to cap Russian oil prices, which analysts fear could disrupt global oil supplies. All right, so I made a video on this the other day, how the EU, the US, Japan, all right, all these G7 countries are implementing a massive oil embargo on Russian oil. They are not going to allow them to enter their ports, some countries. Some countries are not going to allow them to enter the port below or above a certain price, even if they were bought this price 2 weeks ago in a different part of the world and they are being shipped, all right? And they are not going to provide insurance to Russian ships and certain ships. So this is going to shake the whole entire international oil markets, and OPEC is saying that we are facing, quote, considerable uncertainties. We've never seen a massive oil embargo at this scale from an oil producer that's this large of a producer on the international markets. We've never seen this before in our lifetime. So this is new. This is uncharted territories. This isn't even a price control internally in a country. This is a international G7 country price control, price manipulation, and oil embargo on Russian ships and Russian oil that's going to shake the international markets, right? It says, while it kept its forecast for economic growth in oil demand largely unchanged, OPEC also warned that the threat of, quote, additional energy supply disruptions in the European Union, an apparent allusion to the bloc's impending plans to ban imports of Russian oil. So, additional energy supply disruptions in the EU. That's what OPEC is saying. So, additional. So, you're already having energy supply disruptions. Prepare for more. OPEC says prepare for more, right? And they're going to cut back their production. So, it says on December 5th, the EU is set to ban imports of Russian crude oil while promoting its companies while prohibiting. So they are going to ban imports of Russian crude oil while prohibiting its companies from insuring and financing Russian oil exports anywhere in the world. This is going to rock the markets, guys. And it's like nobody in the news is talking about this. It's not on anybody's radar. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Maybe on YouTube or something, but I haven't seen any mainstream news. This is the first article I saw. This was on Fox Business, like scooped down at the bottom of the barrel, and it didn't even put on blast this oil embargo. All right, so I just want to read this again because this is critical. This is going to change everything on December 5th and leading up to it. Once this really hits the mainstream consciousness and people realize, the markets realize, wait a minute, this is happening in a week or two, panic's going to hit, guys. Panic's going to hit. So it says, on December 5th, I just want to reiterate this. The EU is set to ban imports of Russian crude oil while prohibiting the EU companies from insuring or financing Russian oil exports anywhere in the world. All right? And if they can't get insurance or anything, they can't even dock in the EU. They can't dock in all these certain ports. It's going to cause massive disruptions worldwide, not even in the EU, because Europe is a massive insurance sector. They provide insurance to all these other countries all around the world for their shipping exports. And they're going to say, if you are getting this Russian oil, if you are docking these Russian ships, anything to do with it, we are not going to insure you anymore. All right, this is going to be huge. They are backing the oil companies into a corner because I'm sure there's a lot of international laws even saying they have to have insurance on these on this transportation, because what if there's an oil spill? What if there's a spill? Who's going to get blamed for that and charged for that? They pretty much, I can almost guarantee they have to have insurance in most places. And Europe and the EU and these G7 countries are, and the UK is part of this too, and the US and Japan, all part of this. They are going to do this. This is going to rock the markets, and they are not going to provide insurance for any Russian ships at all. This is pretty much going to cut Russia off to only selling oil to China and India, right? And this is going to cause massive shortages, massive shocks instantly in the supply chain. There's no replacement for this oil. There's nobody said on December 5th, by December 5th, we are going to replace all this oil we are getting rid of. They just said we are getting rid of it. That's what they always do. They just say we're getting rid of it. We're not replacing it before we even get rid of it, because that's the smart thing to do. But no, they're just getting rid of it. Cut off. So this is huge, guys. This is going to rock the markets. I really can't stress how big this is. All right, this is massive, and I feel like it's not on the radar yet. It needs to be talked about more. There needs to be a solution for this. So it says another major uncertainty for oil markets, OPEC itself, the cartel and its Russian-led allies are set to meet the day before the sanctions come into force and consider adjusting their oil production. So they are going to meet the day before. They're going to meet December 4th and most likely cut the oil and be like, are you sure you want to do this, EU? It says OPEC production alone accounts for around 40% of global oil supplies. This is huge, guys. This is massive that this is happening. It says the UK said it would also exclude Russian oil cargoes from its London shipping insurance market. because the UK is technically not a part of the EU, but they are going to go along with it as well. US is doing this. This is a G7 nation pact, and the US is part of this. Japan, EU, UK, all these countries are doing it. They're going in. They're doing it. And it says, at its last meeting in early October, the group known collectively as OPEC Plus agreed to slash its output targets by 2 million barrels a day, its largest production cut since the beginning of the you-know-what. The move drew criticism from Western oil-consuming nations such as the U.S. as it threatened to send oil prices higher and add to inflation pressures across the global economy. All right? So they already slashed 2 million last month in October a day, right? They're going to do it again on December 4th before this meeting. They're not screwing around. This is their lifeblood. This is all the money they make. A lot of these countries it's mostly oil. This is how they make money, and they're not going to give up their power that they have over this. All right, they have a monopoly on oil. They produce 40% of it. Okay, of global oil supplies. They're not just going to give up this monopoly and let the G7 countries tell them how much to sell their oil for. And Russia is part of OPEC Plus. Right? Russia's in this alliance as well. Essentially, they're not in OPEC, but they're in OPEC Plus. Same thing, same alliance, and they're gonna cut back. All right, Russia's just gonna say, we're just gonna keep this oil for ourselves until you stop, and then we'll put it back on the market. We'll just keep it for ourselves. We'll just fill our oil reserves. All right, we'll just keep pumping and fill our reserves and sell to India and China. All right, so look out for this, guys. This is going to be a big thing, and this is all leading up to a global tracking system, all right, a beast system. And they're implementing the system telling you that you're so terrible, that it's your fault there's shortages, it's your fault energy production is down, there's going to be blackouts. This is what they're telling us, that it's our fault, even though they're the ones that have engineered this. And they are some of the biggest hypocrites on the planet, right? So it says, just before we get into this, I just want to set the stage for it. It says investments of 125 billionaires have the same carbon footprint as France. Some of the world's richest billionaires each emit around 3 million metric tons of carbon dioxide on average per year, more than 1 million times the amount emitted by 90% of people, according to a new study. So top 125 billionaires emit a million times more carbon than 90% of people on Earth. So a million times more carbon than you, most likely, right? They emit a million times more than one person, all right? So if there's I can't even do the numbers, right? If there's 100 of them, that's 100 million people they're accounting for. If there's 1,000 of them, that equates to, what is that, 1 billion people, right? This is insane. 1,000 billionaires emit the same amount of carbon as 1,000 people, 1,000 normal people. I mean, sorry about that. They emit the same amount as 1 billion people. Sorry about that. 1,000 billionaires emit the same amount as 1 billion people on Earth. So if we have 8,000 billionaires, they're emitting more than everyone on Earth. All right, statistically from this thing. And I'm only saying that because they're just hypocrites. That's why they fly around on their jets all day. They fly to these climate summits and then tell us what they're going to do with their lives while they're collapsing global energy markets, putting this embargo on Russian oil, right? This is on purpose. They've told us they want to get rid of fossil fuels and all this stuff. They've said this, right? This is an open plan, open agenda. We know this. They've said this 100 times. It's not a secret, guys. And now banks around the world are implementing this carbon tracing scheme. So if you want to see what it's all going to look like very soon, this is exactly what it's going to look like. They're going to calculate everything you're doing, everything in your bank account is going to be tracked and traced and given a carbon footprint. That's step one. Step two is to allot a carbon credit to this carbon footprint, and everything you do will have a credit attached to it. Everything that requires energy consumption, food consumption, water consumption, resource consumption will have a carbon credit attached to this, and it's already all being tracked through your bank account, and they're setting this up in Australia right now. All right, so they're gonna track everything, figure out what you're doing. This is what they're setting up now, and then they're literally telling you you can pay to offset this carbon that you're producing. This is what's happening in Australia at an Australian bank right now, and this is coming. This is the beta test. They love to test stuff in Australia. We saw Australia the past 2 years. It was a nightmare. It was disastrous. It was scary. All right, what happened in Australia the past 2 years? Thankfully, a lot of that's behind us, but it was getting pretty dystopian and pretty frightening, pretty 1984 very quickly in Australia. And that's because they beta test things there, because Australia doesn't have a lot of strong civil liberties, strong constitution, at least like the United States does, right? They're able to implement these dystopian laws, it seems. This is my observation. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like they're able to implement way more dystopian laws without any backlash, way easier in Australia. It seems like it's their system of government. I'm not sure, could be wrong, but it seems like they're able to fast track tyranny very quickly, and now they're fast tracking this as well. So let's get into that. All right, it says Commonwealth Bank of Australia is now tracking your carbon footprint based on how you spend your money. But you can pay to offset it. Don't worry, you can offset it. This is what this carbon scheme in China, all right, and in the EU already, they give companies carbon credits. They say, here's your 1,000 credits for the year, all right, and you can do this amount of stuff, have this amount of carbon emissions, yada yada. And if they stay under it, say they have 100 left, they're given these credits by the government. They can sell those credits to a different company that's producing more carbon. So this company needs 1,100 credits though for the year, but he only got 1,000, and this company only needs 900. So they sell the credits, and it's all tracking what they're doing, their carbon output, their production, everything. This is already happening in China and Europe for companies, but it's coming for us now because we have to interact with these companies. We are technically, by quasi law, rule, in these countries, they are already under this system themselves because they have to interact with these companies. Companies are already changing their protocol for this, for when the customers are tracked too. All right, so it says, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia has included a new feature on its internet banking that tells customers how many trees they've destroyed with their carbon footprint based on monthly spending. So, tells you how many trees they've destroyed. This is crazy, guys. This is happening. The bank is attempting to encourage more sustainable purchases by highlighting the damage its clients have on the environment. CBA's internet banking app displays a person's carbon footprint for the current month and examples of the damage they are causing, including CO2 produced equivalents to the distance of driving their car. They're tracking everything. All right, so here's an example. It says, your October footprint is equivalent to driving 3,065 kilometers in a car and 8 trees being cut, right? This is what they're telling you. They're tracking everything you're buying. This is in Australia, Commonwealth Bank in Australia. They're tracking everything you're buying, and they're calculating how much carbon approximately you would be emitting from all of these purchases. And then they're saying your carbon footprint equivalent is equivalent to driving 3,065 kilometers in your car. And it's equivalent to cutting down 8 trees. And it says your main spending categories contributing to your carbon footprint are 60% transport. So 60% of your carbon footprint is transport, because they know how much gas you buy every month. And they know how much you're spending on gas. 12% groceries, and 6% eating out. And it says view more. And it also says click here to offset your footprint. So you can pay money. You can buy carbon credits to offset your footprint, because your footprint is equivalent to cutting down 8 trees. So you need to pay for those 8 trees, all right? Like, how much is your breathing, right? Your breathing is emitting carbon. How many breaths does the average person take? I think that also should be tracked. They're not considering this, right? They need to dig deeper into this. This is dystopian as heck. Right? I'm sorry to make a joke of it, but sometimes that's the only way I can cope with this stuff. It's like, it's hitting me, guys. This is real stuff. They are calculating your carbon, saying 60% of your carbon footprint this month was transport, was driving your car. 12% was groceries. Just you eating, you eater, you worthless eater, right? 12% of that's groceries. You're producing carbon just eating. It says 66 kilograms of carbon was produced just because you were eating groceries. And then 6% of your carbon, 34 kilograms, was from eating out. Shouldn't have been eating out, right? And you probably drove your car to go eat out. And you probably drove your car to go get groceries, which approximate 312 kilograms of carbon you produced, right? This is what you're going to see. This is imagine logging into your mobile banking app and you just see this and it's like, look at what you've been doing. It's like tracking you and tracing you. It knows every little thing you've been doing. It's dystopian, it's creepy, and it calculated how much carbon you approximately used while doing all these activities. Even your food, okay? It's like, it knows it knows how much groceries you bought, and it's calculating this much food produces this much carbon. Like, are they going to start tracking our food? Are they going to regulate? Wait a minute. You're buying too much food. That food is producing too much carbon. Your food consumption needs to come down 12%. It needs to go down to 10% to meet your standard, to meet your credit. This is what we are heading towards, all right? It's more than just your car. They're going to shut off the power in your car. It's coming for your food too, right? This just hit me because it's like they have to, and eating out too. They know. Did you go to Chick-fil-A? All right? You went to Chick-fil-A. Oh, that's like 2% right there, all right? You better not go again. You better not go. This is the situation we are heading towards, guys. Every single thing tracked and traced. You can only drive X amount of miles per day. It'll all be calculated. It'll be because we are in an energy crisis. It's because there's no gas. See, we used all the resources. They're all gone. We used all the gas. We used all the liquid natural gas. We used all the diesel. It's all gone. It's gone, guys. We used all the resources. It's gone. That's what they're going to say. That's going to be the excuse. And the only solution is to trace everything to make sure everyone has enough stuff, right? We got to make sure people eat. We got to, like, you're eating too much. Save some for the rest of us. Right? I'm joking around here, but it's just like, this is so dystopian and insane. I can't imagine logging in to my bank and it's saying, you're like breaking down my carbon footprint for the month. I'd be freaked out. I'd be like, I didn't even know I went there. I didn't even know I bought that. I didn't know I bought those donuts. I don't remember stopping at McDonald's that many times. Like, seriously, this is dystopian, guys. All right, this is what we're heading towards, and this is the beast system. Right? Gotta whisper it. It's the beast system. This is what this is heading towards. It's the perfect excuse. Everything's tracked and traced, and then it becomes mandatory. You have to do this stuff or you will be blocked out of this system, okay? You will not get any credits. Your car will not turn on. You will not get any gas to your house. You will not have your lights turn on if you do not follow this system. You couldn't buy groceries. You can't buy groceries or eat out. This is what we're heading towards, guys. Get prepared. You don't want to be locked out. You don't want to go along, and you don't want to be locked out either. It's one of these things. It's like, stay as long as you can, but be prepared, okay? Be prepared to be locked out. Be prepared to have your own food, to grow your own food. Get these skills up. Have animals, right? Learn how to butcher animals. Learn this. The U.S. military is doing training for this right now, off-grid homestead training. They're learning how to butcher animals and grow food right now because they are preparing for a supply chain collapse, right? I made a whole video on this. Get your skills up. Learn to grow food. Learn how to animal husbandry. Every animal's different. Learn how to butcher and process these animals. Learn how to hunt. Learn how to fish. Learn how to forage, okay? There's so many different things in nature that you can eat. Around here, there's berries everywhere. Berries everywhere. You can eat pine needles. Pine needles. You can eat pine needles, vitamin C in it, calories in it. It's not going to be the greatest. Stomach might hurt a little. You can eat them, all right? There's so many things that you can eat and survive off that are just right around you. Get these skills up now, guys. You don't want to be told that you did too much, you spent too much carbon on your groceries, all right? And you got to cut back on your groceries for your family when you're just buying food for your family. You don't want to be in this situation, and when it gets desperate, guys, it's going to get desperate. So get your skills up, get all this stuff up, and stay prepared, guys. Get in the country too, even if you're in the city. I know a lot of you are already in the country, but get out of these cities too. They're going to be death traps, all right? So thank you guys for watching. Stay blessed. Have a big old blessed day.